They're going to tell you that they asked him about that. And he wasn't able to give them an explanation why. You're going to hear 3 different statements Mr. Carrillo makes. The first statement is Officer Christopher Diaz, who arrives on the scene. He's one of the first officers on the scene. Mr. Carrillo tells Officer Diaz that he heard Jane Doe say, "I'll be right out. When I heard the man's voice, I thought she was by herself. She's not, so I was leaving." And he says that because, as you'll hear, he ultimately decided to leave Jane Doe's apartment because he thought there was a man in that apartment with her. You're going to hear there wasn't. She had 2 girlfriends with her that night. You'll hear him say to Officer Diaz, quote, I had no business being over here. He'll tell Officer Diaz that he'd been out drinking that night. He'll tell him that he had, quote, 2 beers, and that he had 2 shots of whatever it is. The officer's opinion is that Mr. Carrillo was not drunk, that he was coherent and responsive. And you'll also hear Mr. Carrillo admit to Officer Diaz, quote, not my smartest time, I'll tell you that. We'll play that recording for you. And you'll hear the next recording. This is Mr. Carrillo's interview with Officer Doherty, who arrived on the scene. He'll tell Officer Doherty, among other things, I may have not. I didn't see the window open. I mean, I'll be frank with you, the window was open. The light was on, and I was trying to get her attention. And when I heard a man's voice, that's exactly when I left. Because I figured, you know what? She's not alone. She's accompanied, and I want to be respectful. So I left. You'll hear from Jane Doe. They were going by someone in the apartment. It's 3:30 in the morning. She was asleep, so were her friends. Mr. Carrillo tells Officer Doherty, quote, I saw the light on. I wanted to say hello. I heard her when she came out say, who is it? Again, you're going to hear, there were no lights. 3:30 in the morning. The officer asked Mr. Carrillo what he had been doing that night. As you heard, he says he was out at a bar, had 2 beers, 2 drinks. He says, I got dropped off. I parked my car. You can see there I had a bolt that was charged. He says, I mean, you can see my car's been parked there for 2 hours. Previously, he tells the officers he'd been dropped off by his girlfriend. Officer Doherty asks whether Mr. Carrillo was trying to seduce Jane Doe. Mr. Carrillo says, no. In retrospect, it was insane. Officer Doherty asks him, do you think most people would have had clothes on? Mr. Carrillo's response, as you will hear, is, sir, I don't know. He goes on to say, it was a warm night. It was a warm night. I mean, honestly, I came home, I was almost in bed, and that's why I was wearing this. I usually come home, you know, long day at work, take off my suit. I'm normally wearing a suit, tie, shirt, what have you. And today I was out. Came back, took off, and probably should have been wearing jeans and a t-shirt. I mean, I didn't find it offensive, but in retrospect, and there's a third interview you'll hear. This one was conducted by Detective Becker. Among various things you're going to hear in that interview, Mr. Carrillo tells Detective Becker that after he left, he says, and I encountered your colleagues. I was about to go to sleep. That's why my pants were off. My shirt was off. In retrospect, probably should have had them on. I understand that. Detective Becker continues to question Mr. Carrillo, asks him about exactly what he did when he went to that apartment that night. Asks him about there being 2 access points in that apartment. Mr. Carrillo says, yeah, there is. There is, and I walked around, and I knocked. I thought I heard something, but wasn't sure. The light was definitely on in her living room, so there's a side door. So I pushed the side door. It wasn't locked. To get to the backyard, where the awning is. To get to her, she's got an awning table, she's got an outdoor table and awning. Talking about the patio area there. He says, you knocked, you didn't hear anything. Officer Becker says, you didn't hear anything? Mr. Carrillo says this. No. I went around. I peeked. I saw the lights on. I went back around, and that's when I heard the, who is it? What do you want? I said, you know, it's Efren. It's your neighbor. Then I heard what I thought was a male's voice, saying, what the hell is that? Then I left. That's when I found your colleagues here. His colleagues of the police. He says again, it's my recollection I knocked on the door and it was a light on. I went through the back and checked it out. And I walked right back to the front. I do not recall knocking at the window. We're going to see evidence the window was damaged. You're going to hear they admitted to knocking on the front bedroom window to the other 2 officers. He speaks to Detective Becker. He says, I don't recall knocking on the window. I mean, I remember literally knocking on the door, walking in the back, and at that point I started to hear her come up and ask questions in a gentleman's voice. And then literally, I just bailed. I just left, I bailed, and that's when I found your calls. Detective Becker goes on to ask him, why is it okay to do that? The Carrillo's response, which you will hear. Well, Detective Becker asked him verbatim, explain to me when that's okay. Mr. Carrillo's response, no. It's hard to explain that. It is hard to explain that. And I mean again, I was, and do I have a right to do that? No. No one has the right to do that. Okay. to hear the full interviews. You'll hear those parts also. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to listen to those recordings. I want you to listen to the testimony of the officers, testimony of Ms. Doe. I want you to listen to the judge who's been instructing the law in this case. And you're going to be asked to take that evidence back to the deliberation room you'll get and render a verdict. At the end of this trial, I'm going to ask that verdict, either one which is reasonably supported by the evidence, verdict guilty. Thank you.
Mr. Andrews, thank you.
Yes.
Again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You may recall that when this all started, the judge said that what you're about to hear from us is not evidence. In other words, what we say is what we think the evidence is going to show, and we're not always right about that. You know, things come in that we're not always sure about, so you have to listen. What we try to do, I think, at this time is to try to give you some sort of a roadmap of how the evidence will come in. And I'll start by saying that most, or a significant part of what Mr. Hunt has said to you is correct. In other words, I'm not going to be disputing many of the things that he has presented to you, but I want to remind you that the charge here today, the people that elected to prosecute, is the charge of peeking in a door or window. So in order to put that in perspective, I will just try to add some things in terms of what I want you to think about in the evidence that will come in that I think will be uncontroverted, but there'll be something that maybe we'll have to flesh out. The first thing is, it is clear, it is not disputed, my client and his girlfriend, Yolanda, had been out drinking that night. You will hear the different versions of what Mr. Carrillo said in the three different cases. You'll also hear from him, where he will tell you what that night was for him. You will also hear that on prior occasion, he had been at the bar, Space 25, and Jane Doe, and we'll try real hard to remember Jane Doe, trying to respect her privacy, that he had met her on prior occasion, that they had had what he thought was a good meeting, nice meeting at a bar here in Santa Rosa. I think he at one point described it as flirtatious. And that after that, they had run into each other a couple of times at the property. Never really got to know each other well. He acknowledged they weren't friends or anything like that. But he'll tell you that he had received this bottle of wine when he had been in Monterey and decided, I met this girl, and I'll take a bottle of wine over and meet her. And one of the things that we'll talk about in the course of this trial is this is an interesting apartment complex. It's different than a lot of places that you'll see. And what you'll see is that this particular part of the complex, that Mr. Carrillo's apartment is directly over here. And that the way a lot of people who live there ingress and egress their apartment is this way, rather than coming around to the, what I would call the front side. And in fact, when Mr. Carrillo, as he will tell you, he has an electric car, and he charges it, and in order to charge it, he has to leave his garage door open. He can't shut the garage door until the cord will fit. But during the course of the time that he lived there, he used his entrance and saw her, that she used her entrance. And on the day after they had met at the bar, he decided to bring her a bottle of wine, and he went through the back. She was there, and she said, and he said, that she greeted him wearing a towel. Just a towel gave him the impression that she was going to either have come out of the shower or was going to the shower. And according to him, he thought that it had been a very friendly, nice gesture. In fact, when she was interviewed by the police on the night in question, she told also that she thought it was a nice gesture. She didn't have complaints about it. She didn't seem to be very upset about it. You'll learn that she was recently interviewed by the police and has now, in a recent interview by the police, says, contrary to what she said on the scene about being a nice janitor, that she was revolted and disgusted by his presence on that day. And I believe will say that instead of wearing towel, she had on shorts and a tank top. Now remember, the evidence will show that they both said towel on the night in question. So she has, at least from recent reports, changed her story a little bit. You'll see, we'll get to evaluate that. Now, in the course of the evening, there's a lot of facts that will come out, like I said, that aren't in dispute. One of the things that is not in dispute is that the window, this window here, which is the bedroom. What you'll see when you get a picture of the whole apartment complex is that you were possibly thinking logically, or using your apartment and coming here, you would think this was the living room and this was the bedroom, and we're showing you evidence about why Mr. Carrillo would believe that that wasn't her bedroom, had no knowledge that it was her bedroom. And there was a discussion with Mr. Carrillo early on about whether or not he had knocked. And he said, I don't remember knocking on anything, and no one says he knocked on anything. And what the evidence will show is that this window here was open. So when Mr. Carrillo knocked on the window, there was no window. And so he knocked, and the screen broke. You'll see pictures of the screen, and you'll get to judge for yourself how important that is in terms of making a decision. Excuse me a second, yes, water. But what you'll also know is that that's not charged. He's not charged with putting his hand through the window. So what this case, what the evidence is about is, did he peek inside her door or window? No one is saying, you'll hear no evidence, that he peeked in this window. So where is where is the evidence of peeking? The only evidence of any sort of peeking comes from Mr. Carrillo. There's no witness, in other words, nobody said, I saw somebody looking through a window or anything like that. The only evidence of peeking comes from the mouth of Mr. Carrillo. And when you look at the evidence, Mr. Carrillo will explain to you that when he went around here from the gate to the back, and he said he just peeked around to see, and he saw light. Didn't peek in anybody's window, didn't put his eyes up to any window, didn't peek into any window, which is what the charge is. Now, obviously, when Mr. Clinton says, I'm not going to be in a position to defend his overall behavior that night, but you're here to judge evidence. You're here to listen to the facts and follow the law. And my belief is, when you listen to those facts and you follow the law, you only concluded that you will be able to reach it. While you might not like what he did, they didn't commit the crime. He may have done some things that he feels stupid about, all those things. But we're here to decide, did he commit the crime that the people had charged him with? And I submit to you, you will come to the other conclusion and find him not guilty. Thank you.
So what I'd like to do, because it was mentioned by both parties in their opening, and only briefly mention in your questionnaire, I wanted to read another instruction to you. In this case, a person is called Jane Doe. This name is used only to protect the privacy as required, or rather as agreed to by both the defense and the prosecution in this case. The fact that the person is identified in this way is not evidence. Do not consider this fact for any purpose whatsoever. Mr. Hunt, are you prepared to call your first witness?
I am, Your Honor. Deputy Anderson is retrieving her right now. He's going to call it.
We just a little.
Hopefully it'll just be another minute or two. Everyone parking okay? And we'll plan on a full hour and a half lunch break, especially for the first day. I don't know how long it will take you back to the following. Comfortably to a local restaurant. Or we have to say tables if you brought your own lunch. So we'll take it for just remember my admonition to you, make sure you park in an appropriate parking space and that you're parked within it, not over the line, as you can't fix tickets.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask to mark some exhibits. I have 2 marked them. I'm going to say that they have no plan to clear. I will use them in the direction.
Roseanne.
Hey, please approach the witness standing, and we'll have the witness swearing in.
Do you solemnly state that the evidence you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Please be seated. Jane Doe, not testifying.
So what I'd like you to do is be comfortable. If you need a break, let us know. If you could slide your seat forward as far as you can do so comfortably. Please keep your voice up so everyone can hear. Counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Dell, have you ever testified in court before?
No.
The way this works is I'll ask you some questions. If you don't understand my question, let me know. If there's an objection, the judge will rule on the objection, wait for the ruling, and then you don't believe whether or not. And where do you do from?
I work as a unit assistant at Kaiser Hospital.
And what do you do with your job?
I'm the secretary of all the med-surg units on the graveyard shift. So for net patients.
You say you work the graveyard shift, what is that?
It's the night shift. I go in at 11 p.m. and I get off at 7:30 a.m.
And how long have you been in your line of work for?
3 years.
Was that your job back on July 13, 2013?
Yes, that's correct.
Where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm from Huntington Beach.
And you live in Santa Rosa currently?
Yes, I do.
You live at the same place currently that you lived back on the night of July 13, 2013?
Yes,
Where's that at?
that's in Santa Rosa.
And is that on Brockers Street?
Yes, that's correct.
290 Brockers Street, Park E?
It's 390.
390. Are you married?
No.
And back on July 13, 2013, were you living with him?
No.
How long have you lived in Santa Rosa before July 13, 2013?
I lived in Monarch Park before. I had lived in Santa Rosa prior to Monarch Park. I've lived in a couple places in Santa Rosa.
Let me ask you, how long had you lived at your apartment on Brockers there before July 13, 2013?
I had moved in there in April, so it's only been 3 months ago.
I want to ask you a little bit about the apartment. Can I approach you that?
Yes, and neither side needs to ask to approach. You may do so.
Ms. Doe, I've got a diagram here. Can you see the diagram? It's going to be about 7 and 4 here.
Yes.
Okay. What does that diagram show?
It's a outlay of my apartment, or the setup.
And that diagram, it's not the scale, is it?
I'm sorry, what?
Is that a scale diagram?
What is that? What do you mean, a scale diagram?
Is that a general diagram of your apartment?
Yes.
Okay. I showed you this earlier today, actually.
Correct.
And you said it's not exactly proportionate, right?
Right, we fixed what was looked like the garage door to the patio door, so.
Okay. But as far as the relation of the different, objects to each other, is it generally accurate?
Yes.
Dr. True, the exhibits now?
Exhibits 3 through 20 for the record.
I know the jury can't see the diagram at this point. Anything that's admitted into evidence, you'll have in the jury room with you to examine.
Ms. Dill, I'm going to show you what is marked as People's Exhibit number 4. Can you tell us what that exhibit is?
That's the walkway up to the apartments of where I live.
And is that a fair and accurate depiction of how that walkway looks?
Yes.
On the diagram, where would that walkway be based on this diagram
Well, to the front of my walkway there, where the fence is.
Let me turn this in here, you can see. So People's Exhibit number 4, I will ask people to issue the jury, would be this area in front of the brown fence down at the bottom of the diagram.
Yes.
I'm sorry, were you moving it in at this time?
Yes, I'd ask the
Any objection to 4?
No objection, no.
4 is submitted. And you may publish.
I'm going to show you what's marked as People's 8. Tell us what that is.
That's my front door in my living room going to the left.
Fair and accurate depiction of how your front door area looked on July 13th, 2013?
Yes.
And where in the diagram here is that picture correspond to?
Where the two green lines are, there's the door, the front door, and to the left is the living room.
Also, I do have a wooden pointer. I think that would assist.
Yes.
They don't trust me with a laser pointer yet.
Okay, so the place that exhibit up there on the diagram, is that where it corresponds to?
Yes, that's correct. To the left there. Right. Yes, that's right.
I'll show you what's been marked as People's Exhibit number 17. Can you tell us what that is?
That's the gate in front of the bedroom window.
And can you put that up on the diagram there, approximately where it would go? And so the opening in the fence there, is that the opening into the area of your front porch?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And that was depicted in People's number 5 that I showed you earlier?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's marked as People's number 6. Do you recognize what that is?
Yes, that's my front door into the left, my living room window.
Okay. Can you put that up on the diagram approximately where it corresponds to? And so, this is a picture of your front door. Is this inside of the wooden fence that's marked on the diagram here?
Yes, that's correct.
I notice there's a window on the left of that picture there. What does that window look into?
That window that's into the living room.
And on the right side of that picture, looks like there's an edge of a window. What is that window on the right side?
That's into my bedroom.
No. And do those two windows correspond to these two blue marks marked as windows in the background?
Yes.
Show you what's marked as People's Exhibit number 7. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, that's a picture of my front door with the light on at night. There's both windows in the picture and it's behind the fence.
And is that the same area we were talking about in the last photograph?
Yes.